If you're a new parent drowning in exhaustion, you've probably heard every sleep tip under the sun. Keep the room dark. Put them down drowsy but awake. Never rock them to sleep. The problem? Some of the most popular sleep advice out there isn't just unhelpful. It can actually make your situation worse. Today, we're going to talk about 5 common baby sleep tips that sound reasonable, that seem like they should work, but that often backfire spectacularly. And more importantly, we'll talk about what you can do instead. Let's start with tip number 1, putting your baby down drowsy but awake. This is perhaps the most repeated piece of advice in the baby sleep world. The idea is that if you put your baby down when they're sleepy, but not fully asleep, they'll learn to fall asleep independently. And in theory, that sounds great. But here's what actually happens for most families. You spend 20 minutes rocking and soothing your baby until their eyelids are heavy. You carefully, so carefully, transfer them to the crib. And the second their back touches the mattress, their eyes pop open like you've just set off an alarm. Now they're upset, you're frustrated, and you're starting the whole process over again. Except this time, they're overtired and even harder to settle. The problem with this advice is that it assumes all babies are the same, and it ignores developmental readiness. Some babies genuinely aren't ready to self-soothe until they're older. For young infants especially, the transition from arms to crib can be jarring. They're wired to want contact and closeness. Fighting against that biology often creates more tears and more stress for everyone. What works better? For young babies, prioritize actually getting them to sleep over how they fall asleep. If they need to be fully asleep when you put them down, that's okay. You're not creating bad habits. You're responding to their needs. As they get older, usually around 4 to 6 months, you can gradually work on putting them down more awake. But there's no prize for rushing this milestone. Okay, tip number 2, keeping the room completely dark. Darkness helps produce melatonin, the sleep hormone, so blackout curtains have become almost mandatory in baby sleep advice. And for some babies, this works beautifully. But for others, particularly for naps, extreme darkness backfires. Here's why. Babies need to learn the difference between day and night. When you make every sleep environment pitch black, you remove that natural cue. Some babies will start confusing their longest stretch of sleep, thinking nap time is nighttime. You might get a 3-hour nap at 2 in the afternoon and then face a baby who's wide awake at 2 in the morning. Additionally, some babies and toddlers actually develop a fear of extreme darkness. If your child starts resisting their sleep space or seems anxious at bedtime, the darkness itself might be the problem, not the solution. What works better? Keep nights dark, yes, but let naps happen in normal daylight or with just slightly dimmed lighting. Let natural light in during the day. This reinforces their circadian rhythm and helps their body understand when it's truly time for that long overnight sleep. If your baby seems afraid, a small nightlight is absolutely fine. The small amount of light from a dim red or amber nightlight won't significantly impact melatonin production, and if it helps them feel secure, it's worth it. Tip number 3, never rocking or nursing your baby to sleep. This advice comes from the fear of creating sleep associations. The thinking goes that if your baby needs to be rocked or fed to fall asleep, they'll need that same thing every time they wake up during the night. And while there's some truth to the concept of sleep associations, the black and white approach of never doing these things creates unnecessary stress. First of all, rocking and feeding are biologically normal ways that babies fall asleep. They're soothing, they're connecting, and they work. Fighting against them, especially with a young baby, often means you're just fighting biology. Second, many babies who are rocked or nursed to sleep still learn to sleep through the night naturally as they mature. Not all sleep associations are permanent problems. And here's the kicker. When you stress yourself out trying to avoid these normal soothing methods, your baby picks up on your tension. You're not calm, they're not calm, and now nobody's sleeping. You've actually made the situation harder by trying to prevent a problem that might not have even materialized. What works better? Rock your baby? Nurse your baby? Do what works for your family. As your baby gets older, you can gradually introduce other ways of falling asleep. Maybe you rock them for less time, or you nurse them, but then hold them for a few minutes before putting them down. Change can happen slowly and gently. There's no need to go cold turkey on methods that are working just because the internet said they're wrong. Tip number 4. Following wake windows religiously. Wake windows are the recommended amount of time a baby should be awake between sleep periods based on their age, and they can be a useful general guideline. But somewhere along the way, wake windows became rigid rules, and parents started watching the clock more than they watched their baby. I've seen parents keep a baby awake because the wake window hasn't elapsed yet, even though the baby is clearly tired. Or rush to put a baby down because the app said it's time, even though the baby is happy and alert. When you prioritize the timer over your baby's actual cues, you create a mismatch. You might put down an undertired baby who then fights sleep for an hour. Or you might miss your baby's sleep window entirely and end up with an overtired, inconsolable infant. What works better? Use wake windows as a starting point, but learn your baby's individual sleepy cues. Are they rubbing their eyes, getting fussy, staring into space? Those signs matter more than what the chart says. Some babies need slightly shorter wake windows. Some need longer ones. Your baby is an individual, not an average. And finally, tip number 5. Sleep training is the only solution. When nothing else is working, sleep training gets presented as the magic answer. Whether it's cry it out, Ferber, or a gentler method, parents are often told that formal sleep training is the only way they'll ever get rest. And for some families, sleep training works beautifully and feels right. But it's not the only path, and for many families, it actually makes things worse. Some babies aren't developmentally ready for sleep training. Some have temperaments that don't respond well to it. And some parents find that the process is so stressful, so against their instincts, that the emotional toll outweighs any potential benefit. Forcing yourself through a method that feels wrong can damage your confidence as a parent and your connection with your baby. Here's what almost nobody tells you. Many sleep problems resolve on their own as babies mature. Sleep isn't linear. There will be regressions and progressions. What doesn't work at 4 months might work at 6 months without you doing anything differently. What works better? If sleep training feels right for your family, go for it. But if it doesn't, that's okay too. You can make small, gradual changes that feel manageable. You can focus on creating a consistent routine without formal training. You can accept that some stages are just hard and survival mode is a valid strategy. There are many paths to better sleep, and the best one is the one that works for your family's unique situation. So here's the bottom line. Baby sleep advice is everywhere, and a lot of it is well-intentioned. But rigid rules that ignore your baby's individual needs, your family's values, and basic biology often create more problems than they solve. Trust yourself. Watch your baby. And remember that there's no single right way to help your baby sleep. There's only what works for you.